Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1243B, and today's date is March 31st, 2017, and the title of the episode is Countries Begin to Prepare, but preparing for what? Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, we know that the deep state, they are pushing their agenda to remove key individuals from Trump's administration. And we see Flynn, well, he was the first one. And of course, they really did it illegally. They spied on the Trump administration. Then there were certain individuals that had the ability to unmask his identity, and they unmasked him, and then they leaked it out to the public. And of course, there's really nothing there, because it was during the transition team. He did speak to the Russians, and individuals in the Senate Intel Committee, they listened to the recordings and they said there was really nothing there. But we can see right now the Wall Street Journal, they were out there reporting that Flynn was willing to testify in exchange for immunity. And I saw this all over the corporate media that Flynn's going to testify, he's going to want immunity, he's going to testify against Trump, that he was working with the Russians. And when you look at Kellner's language, the lawyer, in his letter, well, Flynn's offer is not so much to turn on Trump as to set the record straight while putting an end to the ongoing media witch hunt. And Trump is saying, you know something? Hey, he should ask for immunity. This way he is safe and sound. And I think the corporate media was playing this up to make it look like that he was going to turn on Trump, he was going to be immune, and we have Trump. Now, I'm looking at this whole entire situation about what's going on here. And this whole thing seems to be a complete distraction about what's really going on. And what's really going on is that we are still on track for a war, for an economic collapse. All this other stuff that's going on right now is noise. That's all it is. And they're continually bringing up different things, making the noise louder and louder, distracting us from what's real. Because when we go to war, do you really care about Flynn and who he spoke to? No, no one's going to care about this. When the economy collapses, are you going to look back and say, wow, I can't believe that they were spying on Trump? No, you don't care. But this is what they're doing out there. Now, the Senate Intel Committee, they're not going to give immunity to Flynn at all. They rejected that right off the bat. But there is an investigation going on about the spying. And Chuck Grassley, Senator Grassley, I should say, chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, he would like to know and understand why Hillary Clinton and 6 of her closest research aides may still have access to classified State Department information, despite FBI Director Comey's assertion that they were extremely careless in their handling of very sensitive, highly classified information. And after sending numerous requests to John Kerry at the State Department, which were never answered, no one has ever given him an answer of why she might still have access to this information, or why those individuals that worked for Hillary Clinton still had access. Now, of course, they said, well, they need access because they're doing research and things like that. But at this point, they should not have access. Now, the corporate media is making a big deal about Nunes and how he went over to the Capitol building to look at certain documents. And this is absolutely normal to do, because there are certain documents that you can't look at anywhere but in certain areas. And actually, former House Intelligence Committee Representative Pete Hoekstra said that if someone was going to present me with the raw intelligence or unfinished intelligence, or with intelligence which was designed for use by another part of the government, yeah, it's very reasonable to expect that I would have to go somewhere else to look at it. But it looks like they're making a very big deal that he did this. And this is absolutely normal. Now, we talked about Judge Napolitano and how he said GCHQ received the data from the NSA database, then GCHQ handed that data off to the Obama administration, and this was the surveillance done on Trump. And we come to find out, and we talked about this before, how the Five Eyes, where other countries will spy on another country and hand that data over. This has been going on for a very long time. I mean, the spying took place against 2 British cabinet members in 1983 by Canada's SIGINT agency. Now, Officer Mike Frost said that Margaret Thatcher used the 5-power global surveillance network to spy on 2 of her cabinet members because she did not believe they were loyal in supporting Thatcher's policies. Now, Frost confirmed that the 5 countries could circumvent domestic laws against spying on citizens by asking another member of the alliance to do it for them. In 1998, it was revealed by Margaret Newsham, a former Lockheed contractor for the National Security Agency, that GCHQ and NSA were involved in warrantless surveillance of U.S. Senator Strom Thurmond's overseas phone calls. In early 1970, NSA and GCHQ reportedly cooperated in conducting warrantless eavesdropping on the communications in New York City of Beatles singer John Lennon. During the 80s, the Canadians were used by the NSA to conduct black bag surveillance, including breaking and entering into the homes of U.S. citizens believed to be working with the Soviets. It was a workaround designed to circumvent the lack of evidence, which made a court order from the FISC nearly impossible to obtain. In the 90s, the NSA eavesdropping devices were discovered in email routers located in the European Parliament headquarters in Brussels. Among the email being intercepted was that of British members of the European Parliament. In 2015, New Zealand's then Prime Minister John Key was placed under surveillance by the Australian Signal Directorate. The transcripts were not only passed on to Australia's government and the NSA, but also to the New Zealand Government Communications Security Bureau. At a meeting of the Five Eyes Agency at GCHQ headquarters on April 22nd to 23rd, 2008, it was agreed that the 5 agencies would share their intercepted bulk data with one another, even if it includes their own citizens. It was a way to get around all of these rules and the rights of the people, and this is how it was done, and it is a fact that it has been done in the past. So everything that we talked about with the GCHQ and the Five Eyes and Judge Napolitano, it all seems to fit that this is how it was being done to circumvent the law and to circumvent individual rights. And we can see right now that the case against the Obama administration is building and building, that he did use surveillance on not just the Trump administration, but many other individuals. We see the NBC. Well, they confirmed exactly what Evelyn Farkas has said. Now, she's trying to backpedal right now because she kind of slipped up and said that they were surveilling the Trump campaign. They had to keep the information. They had to make sure that it wasn't out there, and they had to leak the information. And we can see right now that from everything that we're seeing right now and from the confirmation from NBC, we're starting to get this picture that the Obama administration, well, they weren't just surveilling Trump. They were surveilling any Republican Party in that year to understand what they were doing and to see if they can get dirt on them to be used against them. And what we're seeing at this point is that things are rapidly falling apart for the argument that he didn't use surveillance. Actually, we know because of Trey Gowdy that there are only a certain number of people that can unmask these individuals. And we know that Flynn was unmasked. So what we're getting now is from this anonymous source that the person who did the unmasking is very well known, very high up, very senior in the intelligence world, and is not in the FBI. So that narrows it down, doesn't it? Shouldn't the FBI be investigating all of this? Now, the sources are saying that the unmasking of these names and then spreading the names was for political purposes and nothing to do with national security. We also find out that the surveillance that led to the unmasking of private names of American citizens started before Trump was the GOP nominee. So what we're looking at is that this has been going on for quite a while. And we can see that a lot more information is continually coming out, and the case is building against the Obama administration. Now remember when the NSA, the FBI, and all these intelligence agencies were telling us that, listen, we only collect the metadata, and the metadata doesn't really tell us anything, can't really be used for anything, and then we find out that, well, they use the metadata to kill individuals in drone strikes. Well, they did a little experiment, and they wanted to see if they could uncover FBI Director James Comey's secret Twitter account. So just using a little bit of the metadata, because we know that doesn't really reveal too much, they were able to find out and track down his secret Twitter account. It took Ashley Feinberg, with these small bits of information, 4 hours to track down what Twitter account he uses. Now, of course, it's not called James Comey. He has it under a different name. But how to be sure that it was his? Well, there was only one person currently following the account, Benjamin Weitz of Lawfare. Weitz is no Twitter neophyte. He is an active user with more than 25,000 followers, and he only follows 1,178 accounts, meaning he is not a subscriber to the follow-back philosophy. If he is following a random egg and is the only account following it, there is probably a reason for this. And that reason, well, we just kind of figured it out, because he is a personal friend of James Comey. So, most likely, the Twitter account that she found using these little bits of metadata is Comey's, which shows us the metadata is very important. It holds a lot of information. We can see the buildup now with North Korea. I mean, John McCain was out there. He called Kim Jong-un a crazy fat kid. And we can see right now they're really provoking North Korea. I mean, they stoop to the level of calling him crazy and fat all in the same breath to try to provoke North Korea. We're already seeing different individuals like the Defense Secretary James Mattis. Well, he signaled enough is enough with North Korea right now. They are going in a very reckless manner, he said, and they've got to be stopped. I do believe that at this point, they are planning to go into North Korea. Are they going to invade? No. I think they're going to create some type of an event to give the excuse to go into North Korea. And this is going to have horrific consequences when this goes down. And we see already that Trump is really following the plan of the deep state out in the Middle East. And we can see right now, it looks like the deep state, they're in full control. And we see right now that Trump has relaxed the combat rules for U.S. troops and operations inside of Somalia. Remember, we went into all these individual countries to take control and have regime change, to keep the dollar propped up and capture their natural resources, because they needed the dollar on the oil. And we can see already that we're preparing to go into Yemen. We're preparing more troops for Somalia. We're preparing troops in Iraq. We're preparing troops in Syria. We're preparing troops for Libya. I mean, what picture are you getting here? We're getting the picture that we are preparing war. And we can see right now, this is the plan of the deep state, to continually maintain control of this entire area, and to either get rid of Assad in Syria or to separate Syria. We see right now that out in Mosul, where we had the bombing of all these civilians, and the U.S. said, well, the Iraqis told us to go into this area. Well, the Pentagon, they produced a video of civilians in this building. So they knew there were civilians there. But they're trying to make the case that the Islamic State was forcing hundreds of civilians into the destroyed building, which they presented, and they said, look, they're provoking an attack. They pushed the people into the building. Well, this is really not working out the way they thought, because it shows the Pentagon knew there were civilians in the building, and this wasn't a strategic target then. And they went ahead and they bombed a building which they already knew the civilians were in, and they took out all the civilians. So this is working against them. We also see the Pentagon, well, they're not going to tell us how many troops are in Iraq or Syria or any of the other countries. Now remember, Obama said there's going to be no boots on the ground. Well, we know for a fact that was a lie. And we can see that there are more and more troops heading out to Iraq and Syria. Now, remember, there's an agreement with Iraq where the Iraqis will allow like around 6,000 troops, permanent troops in their country. This is the agreement the United States signed. The United States gets around this by calling the soldiers temporary. And the temporary part is open-ended. So they can bring in 6,000 permanent and they can report it on the corporate news and say, we only have 6,000 troops in there. The rest are temporary. You know, the other 25,000? This is how they get around things. They normally don't mention the temporary troops. Every so often, but they don't give you a count. Well, it looks like CENTCOM announced that they're going to end the lying about the number of U.S. troops in the countries. No, they're not going to start telling the truth. Rather, they decided that they're not going to tell you at all how many troops are in any of these countries. They decided, we're done. The American people do not need to know how many troops are out there. Now we can see that countries, they are getting prepared for something big. We see the United States with NATO moving military assets in Eastern Europe. And they've been doing this for quite a while. And you know all these drills they're having out there where they're bringing the tanks and the troops, they're putting them into caves. They're leaving that stuff there. We also see many countries, well, they're reactivating their draft. Sweden is a country that's reactivating their draft, and other countries are doing this also. We also see Russia and China. They've been preparing their military. And what we're seeing right now is everyone is moving military assets into place. Actually, Russia realizes, Putin have said this before, during a conference where he says that the United States is leading us into war, and we need to stop this, because if we don't, we're going to end up in World War III. And right now, Russia realizes this is where we're headed. China realizes this is where we're headed. Those countries that are close to the border of Russia and China realize that we're heading into this realm. Now, Putin, he signed a decree on Thursday to draft 142,000 Russian men into the armed forces this spring. And what they're looking to do right now is they're looking to increase the draft age ceiling from 27 years old to 30 to 35. And the initiative is due to be discussed already this autumn in Russia. Here in the United States, there's already a bill floating around in Congress to reactivate the draft in the United States. And it's just sitting there waiting for a certain event. They always place the bills into Congress. They sit there and they wait for the event because they know the event is coming. So what we're seeing right now is that countries, they are preparing. The question is, what are they preparing for? Well, it looks like war. And we can see already that the generals and certain neocons, they're preparing to do something in North Korea. We are seeing now the point in time where they're going to take this to the next level. Things are rapidly falling apart with the economy. The debt cannot be sustained. The Fed already signaled that they're bringing it down with the interest rates rise. They're already screaming and yelling about North Korea, about their nuclear weapons. And we can see they're going to be taking to this to the next level. And this is why countries are preparing, because we're heading down the same exact path. Nothing has changed. Because we got a new president, nothing has changed. Those behind the curtain, they are still in charge. They're still calling the shots. They're still directing us to what they want. And it looks like at this point, they're going to get what they want. So get prepared for what is coming. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.